Can painting this model change my mind? Obviously, I'm still working my way through the Armageddon box set, giving you guys as many videos as possible from it and helping you guys hopefully to get your sets and get them painted up. One of the models which stood out to me as one that I wasn't really that excited about was the Orc Psyker, which doesn't make a lot of sense because every aspect of him should have had me screaming going, this model is absolutely incredible, but something about him just didn't tick the boxes. I wasn't crazily excited by him. I know that's not a popular opinion. I know a lot of people think it's like one of the best models in the kit. But yeah, but I've had this kind of thing happen to me before. And during the process of building and painting it, your mind actually changes. You start to find the bits on it you enjoy. You attach fond memories to painting it. And then all of a sudden you like the miniature more. So that's what I'm going to try and do and see if that happens again in today's video. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Before I get into it though, a huge thank you to everyone there that continues to support the channels and all the myriad ways it is possible to do so. Liking, commenting, making sure you're subscribed. So many of you guys watch the videos. Not all of you are subscribed. What's going on with that? Maybe you can take 2 seconds out of your day and hit that subscribe button. Go for it. And anyone out there who goes the extra mile, supports over on Patreon. We try and do our very best to give you as many extra things as possible. Extra videos, podcast episodes, private Discord server, and monthly giveaways. Last month we gave away the Armageddon box set. And this is actually getting boxed up and sent to Sweden. So congratulations to you. And from now on, the giveaway every month will be a combat patrol or a spearhead box of your choice. So it's a little bit more personal. You can decide what project you're excited about or whatever. Pick that. I will then purchase it and then send it directly to you guys free of charge. So if that sounds like something that'll excite you, check out the Patreon linked down below. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in and see if I can convince myself to like this model. And this is the new Weird Boy miniature. Obviously, he's on like a 50mm base, which makes him think he's going to be like a special character or something, but he's not. He's just a standard Weird Boy. Weird Boys were never on bases this big, so like he's on the same size base as the War Boss. It's kind of a little bit strange. A lot of real estate on the table being taken up by him. I got him sprayed black, and then I got him sprayed with a nice gray sear color, and then it was time to start applying paint. So obviously we are going with my traditional orc skin tone, which starts with a plague bearer flesh coat across all the skin. And once again, I was having that kind of hold off moment where I wasn't sure the kind of order of operation for which way I wanted to paint this guy. Should I be trying to paint all the metallics first? Was I going to try and do my rust technique, or was I going to go in and paint it with different paints? In the end, I decided, you know what, I'm going to get the skin done from start to finish, and then I'm going to worry on the other details. It's obviously quite an interesting miniature when it comes to all the details festooning his back, all those cables and conductors and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was planning to have a little bit of fun with that. The second stage of my skin is Berserker Bloodshade. Now this is thinned down a little bit. I basically just work from my wet palette with it. So it's just in with a touch of water and then apply. That adds a lot of warmth and a lot of depth into the Plague Bearer flesh color. It looks a little bit ugly at this stage. And in fact, even when I do the first layer job, it looks kind of ugly with this dark and green. But then we go into the final two kind of layer paints or edge highlight paints. And that's when the skin really does come to life and it looks really, really nice. But I am taking my time, of course, with it and following all of those nice natural lines across the face and highlighting it accordingly. So, you know, cheeks, his little piggy nose, up his pointy ears, foreheads and stuff like that. And making sure to leave that Berserker Bloodshade Plagued Bear flesh, what a sentence, nice and dark in all the recesses and between all the muscles and stuff like that. From here, we jump up to Ogryn Camo, which is obviously quite a bright and vibrant color, but not like, you know, toxic green bright like other orc armies are painted. I prefer the more natural look to an orc skin. And like I said, I'm going in with a kind of feathered kind of highlight on all those kind of raised areas where the light's going to hit. And this is going to obviously make it pop quite a bit and look really, really nice. But this really is the last stage where we go into that really kind of bright color that it makes a nice kind of difference. You can see right now with the skin and the face, it looks a little bit odd with that first layer. The Strachan Green doesn't do an amazing job. And it's only really when you come in with this and you start to really kind of focus and pin down those details, does the kind of shape of the orc's face really start to make sense. And that last color is in fact Krieg Khaki, and as you can see, it is almost a bone color. So when we go in and we highlight the orc skin with this, we are being very reserved with the amount of paint transfer. We're just leaving kind of little lines behind across like the lips and the nose, a little bit on the eyebrows, and then the very tips of the muscles, kneecaps, those kind of bits, just small amounts left behind. And not like solid coats. You want all of those previous greens to kind of bleed through the color. And when it's done, we are left with quite a nice looking orc skin. After this, we grab some Volupus Pink and basically you just fill in the mouth cavity with this. It's a really nice pink tone. And I like to paint it up over the teeth and the gums and stuff. So basically the entire mouth gets done with Volupus Pink, which I think is just a kind of a, I talked at the beginning about the order of operation of painting things. This is just, I think, a faster way of painting a mouth. If you do the entire mouth and then you go in with a Morghast bone and you put down basically like your base coat on the teeth. But I like leaving the kind of top parts of the teeth pink, so it kind of blends in with the gum a little bit more and makes the teeth look a little bit more kind of prominent, and it just looks really nice all framed. The mouth is really framing those kind of gnarly teeth. And then of course we do want to make the teeth pop a little bit more, so we're going to go straight to Ushabti bone and just do the very tips of the teeth in that. Like a normal orc boy, you probably would just leave it at the Morghast bone, that's fine. But in characters, maybe you want to push it a tone or two brighter, because people are obviously going to be picking up models like this and paying attention to them a lot more. Now it's time for the kind of tribe specificness of the model. I'm doing a Speed Freaks army, therefore it's time for the introduction of red. So that's where we go for a Blood Angels red contrast, and I paint this across all of the fabric on this model. Now, I quickly realized that I was going to try and basically the model is very top heavy or bottom heavy when it comes to the fabric. So all the red was going to be below the waist, and I didn't want that. I wanted to frame the model a little bit better with the kind of tribe color. So I decided that all the cable casings were going to be red as well. And then I realized that red was just going to act as a really nice base coat for all the bronze color. So I just went crazy and painted all those bits red. And then I could come back in with the Screaming Bell color and paint in all those wires and all those, like I said, those conductory parts and antenna in that Screaming Bell color. And like I said, it goes a hell of a lot better over the red than it would have over just that bone color. So it was just kind of like a quicker way of painting it, if you will. Then I just literally spent some time focusing on and trying to find all those little bits that were supposed to be that brass color and base coating them in. It took a little bit of time, but I definitely liked the result. When that was all blocked in, it was time for the kind of belts and straps and stuff that you can see that are still bone. So for this, we're going to grab a Wildwood paint and just block those bits in. Later on in the painting step, we do layer those up with Catachan flesh to make them pop. I didn't record that step at all, but when you are painting this, if you're going to follow along, like I said, Catachan flesh was used to highlight the Wildwood sections later down the line. Some lead belts was brought in for the other sections of the metallic. So obviously the big plate that is across his back that all those kind of wires bolt to is going to get filled in with silver. He obviously has the kind of like Frankenstein's monsters bolts coming out of his neck and head and stuff. So we're going to paint those in silver as well. There was a debate in my mind as to whether those bits should be brass too, but I think it's a little bit too much brass, so I decided to do those bits in silver. And then he's got some kind of wrist cuffs that are silver as well, so we're just going to block those all in. They look like old manacles, so maybe the war boss, chained this guy to a wall when he's not at war, just to kind of save himself, having this crazy, powerful, psychic maniac floating around the camp of orcs. Some skeleton horde was then brought in for the orc skull, which makes the tongue kind of the top of his totem. And then any other bone details that you can find across a model get blocked in with this color as well. We ended up going back to Volupus Pink just to block in the kind of orc electrical energy. Part of me thought about doing it on the cabling later on like they do in the example from Warhammer Community, but I decided not to try and do that. I thought I would have just made a mess of it, so I decided to play around with, I do Nilic Oxide later on, which adds that extra flare and color to the cabling. You'll see, it looks really cool. Null oil was then brought in to shade everything except the orc skin. The orc skin is complete, so don't mess with that again. But we like to darken down everything else down so that we can then kind of layer it back up again and have it pop. We want those deep recesses to be particularly dark because it makes the highlights pop a little bit more. Now, we did the first layer job on the red, which was Mephiston red, but the footage was a little bit out of focus, do apologize. So we then go straight to the second layer, which is the Evil Sun Scarlet. And as you can see, we are just layering up all those red sections in between all of those straps. The cables on the back, his awesome kind of capey dress thing that he's wearing. It all just makes it pop. And like the real pallid green and then the real bright and vibrant red with all those cables. It's the kind of turning point of me for this model. Like I said in the intro, I wasn't crazily impressed with this kind of model when I first seen it. like, not being impressed is not the right term, because I know it's an impressive model. It just didn't grab my attention the way some of the other models in the kit did. And I wasn't like dying to paint it. So like I said, I was kind of getting to this stage of painting where I was like, okay, I'm onto something. I'm really liking how this model is turning out. I'm going to be really proud to put this model on the tabletop as one of the models of my army. And I think at this point, the model will definitely make my army list from now until the end of time, because it's so cool. And then following through the red all the way to the end, and then including the Towlight Ochre highlight, which I've started to do on red, which does make quite a big difference. But it's a very, very minuscule amount that is left behind with each brush stroke. But it just kind of elevates the red to that kind of final layer and looks really, really nice. So I took my time. I made sure to do it in all the correct spots. And like I said, the result really speaks for itself. I never would have thought of adding a Towlight Ochre highlight, but because of that old Blue Angel guide from the Heavy Metal team, those guys are wizards. I don't know where they come from with those kind of ideas on what paints to use for this. I certainly never would have thought about it, but I'm definitely glad I did. So the Hazelwood copper layer paint was then brought in to layer up all of those kind of brass parts on the model, which you can see there is quite a lot. But adding this paint onto it now, you can see how it's starting to make those details pop, and it's going to push them further away from like the red tones a little bit. They're still going to be quite red, but you can see how the Screaming Bell and the Mephiston red kind of cables are kind of blending together as one piece right now. And that's something that we definitely need to separate a lot more with this layer paint and make all those details kind of pop for themselves and not just be like background colors. And back to Ushabti Bone to layer up that awesome orc skull on his shtick. I always like painting orc skulls. They're just so simple. They're so well defined. It's so clear, and you know exactly where the highlights are meant to go. The soft curves of like human skulls, they still just baffle me sometimes. I can never remember where the correct highlight is. And when you finish highlighting those eyebrows or the kind of brow bones, and then you pull it up onto that bald dome, it always just looks bad. Screaming Skull is then used as the final highlight on that orc totem. In the rules, the orc totem somehow allows them to capture objectives and then make them sticky. So if this guy ends his command phase on an objective, he claims the objective even if he then moves off of it, which can be super useful if you want to have a super powerful unit of orc boys charging around the battlefield, taking objectives off the enemy and then being able to leave them next turn and continue more fighting objectives while still holding the objective. I think it's really cool. So we've gone for a Screamer Pink and Volupus Pink as the kind of highlight for all of the orc energy. As you can see, I'm just going for like the bits pointing upwards. So the underneath of the electrical coils are going to be left nice and dark. And then we just add in a little bit of pink horror to that and do the kind of last touch highlights in the corners. Just makes that kind of pop even a little bit more and look really, really nice. I'm sure there's one of those like last steps you can highlight on top of pink to make it pop like I did with the red that the Heavy Metal team would know. I don't know what that is. If anyone knows, put in the comments below. Nilic Oxide is then, like I said, brought in to obviously finish off all of those brass sections. And as you can see, I do like to go quite heavy on the Nilic Oxide around every bolt and anywhere there's like a nook or there's a cranny, anywhere that you can actually put those details and it's make it pop. I love doing it. I love Nilic Oxide. I love the kind of technical paints, the Rise of Rust, Nilic Oxide, the Blood for the Blood God. I think they're just such simple tools which elevate models to the next level. I make them stand out in the battlefield and look awesome. Anything that makes them like me look like I put more effort in than I did, I'm all for. After this, we just grabbed a little bit of texture paste. Sorry, not texture paste, a pigment powder. I have this like nice yellowy rust one that I like to apply to the bases. And then obviously when I pigment over them, it makes it look like a desert, which is what I want my orc army to be based on. So it looks really, really nice. I would like to pause it right now and say this is how vibrant he looks. All the colors pop. And this is after I spray varnished him. And unfortunately, it did cloud up a little bit and I was devastated. You can see how everything is just a little bit more milky there, a little bit more white, which is such a disappointing ending to the video. I'm so sorry that happened. If anyone has any idea how I can fix that, please do let me know below. It didn't cloud up entirely. It's not totally ruined, but it was a little bit disappointing.